Again and again and again, I hear from college students who can't say what's on their mind in an essay or whatever because they know the teacher will give them a bad grade or feel the teacher give them a bad grade if you didn't give the progressive viewpoint of the world. Does this bother you, and do you think this is any of the problem? We'll ask you, Dr.
Welcome back to America First, Patriots. I'm your host, and if this is your first time here, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe because we're going to dive deep into the issues that mainstream media won't touch. Today, we're breaking down some explosive testimony from a congressional hearing on anti-Semitism at American universities. And folks, what you're about to hear should concern every American who values free speech and intellectual diversity.
I recognize the gentleman from Wisconsin, Mr. Grothman.
Thank you. First of all, just a quick general statement. This has been talked about, the third or fourth, fifth, whatever, committee hearing dealing with anti-Semitism on American campuses, the fact that in many campuses the Jewish students don't feel safe because of what's going on or not being done on the part of the administration. I'll point out, we could sit here for years, we're never going to have a committee hearing on anti-Semitism at the construction site. We're never going to have one anti-Semitism working in retail or working in manufacturing or in the military, or anti-Semitism in the retirement home. This is basically a university problem. And I think it became a problem because we have such a slanted overall view of the world in the university compared to the country as a whole. You know, in an ideal world, I think you'd say that the university faculty represents a cross-section of the country. But we all know that's not true. If we talk to university professors, they'll tell you I was the only person out of 20 people here who voted for President Trump in my department or whatever. And, you know, not every state keeps track of, you know, which party you register in. But in universities that they do keep track, or people do studies, the universities are just overwhelmingly Democrat, which is a breeding ground for this anti-Semitism, because right now the progressive wing of the Democrat Party, not the entire Democrat Party, but the progressive wing of the Democrat Party, which kind of drives the train over there, this anti-Israel feeling has become one of the things, along with global warming or racism or whatever, that becomes the norm. I'll ask a couple of you guys. I guess I'll start with Dr. Lyons. Do you feel your university ideologically across the board represents the country as a whole, or even California, as far in disciplines in which there's an ideological component? Law school, journalism school, political science. Does it bother you if it is, you know, the country as a whole right now is about 50-50. Does it bother you that you do not, that I assume, like most college campuses, your student body and your faculty, especially your faculty, don't even remotely represent America?
Ideological or political considerations are not conditions for employment at UC Berkeley. That's true.
No, the question is, if we were talking about affirmative action and you had 8,000 faculty and 5 were black, you would say that's a problem. Now, given that everybody brings a certain ideology to their job, particularly if you're teaching students, that is a problem if it doesn't represent America. I mean, I've been doing this for over 20 years, a politician back home and here. Again and again and again, I hear from college students who can't say what's on their mind in an essay or whatever because they know the teacher will give them a bad grade, or feel the teacher will give them a bad grade if you didn't give the progressive viewpoint of the world. Does this bother you, and do you think this is any of the problem? We'll ask you, Dr.
Well, your statement about getting a bad grade because of
does it bother you? Does it bother you that your faculty does not remotely represent America. It
What
is
bothers me-
disproportionately not only Democrat, but progressive Democrat, which is where this idea that anti-Israel is the thing to be come from. That's where it comes from, the progressive left, and way disproportionately, your faculty also comes from the progressive left. That's why these people get away with this and think it's normal.
What bothers me, Congressman, is anything that interrupts a dialogue across different intellectual positions.
So it doesn't bother you if 95% of your faculty and disciplines that have an ideological component are progressive Democrats?
Not if we have a thriving
Good.
dialogue.
Okay,
across
Mr.
different-
Rodriguez, what do you think about that?
Well, we have about 20,000 faculty members of the City University of New York, and they are a diverse group of.
Do they
of
represent, do they even remotely represent America as a whole?
I have no way of knowing
You
that.
must have idea, when you walk around campus and it was a week going to the last election, were there robust debates in which half the people were for Trump? Of course not. You're very, very skewed faculty, which is where this whole problem comes from. Do you acknowledge that your faculty does not ideologically
Gentlemen, to finish
represent
the
America?
question as quickly as possible.
Again, we have a large number of faculty, and they represent diverse points of view, diverse political viewpoint all across the City University of New York.
If I ask you to
The
name,
gentleman's time has expired.
thank you for being friendly.
He yields back. I now recognize the gentlelady from Minnesota, Ms. Omar.
Let me start by saying that Representative Grothman from Wisconsin absolutely nailed it in this hearing. He made a point that nobody wants to talk about, but everyone knows is true. We don't need congressional hearings about anti-Semitism in construction sites or retail stores or manufacturing plants. We don't need them in the military or retirement homes. This problem is uniquely concentrated in our universities, and there's a very specific reason why. For decades, our higher education system has been captured by progressive ideology. Grothman pointed out something that should alarm every parent sending their kids to college. University faculties are overwhelmingly Democrat, and not just moderate Democrats, but progressive Democrats who have made anti-Israel sentiment a core part of their political identity. When you have professors admitting they're the only person who voted for President Trump out of 20 people in their department, that's not diversity. That's ideological conformity. Think about this logically. If we applied the same standards that universities use for racial diversity to political diversity, these institutions would be considered massive failures. If a university had 8,000 faculty members and only 5 were conservative, we'd rightfully call that a problem. But somehow when it comes to political thought, we're supposed to pretend that having 95% progressive faculty is perfectly normal and healthy for education. The real victims here are the students. For over 20 years, Representative Grothman has been hearing from college students who say they can't express their genuine thoughts in essays or class discussions because they know the professors will punish them with bad grades. This isn't education. This is indoctrination. When students are afraid to think critically or present alternative viewpoints, we fail at the most basic level of what education should accomplish. What's particularly telling is how the university administrators responded to these direct questions. Dr. Lyons from UC Berkeley gave the most bureaucratic non-answer possible, saying that ideological considerations aren't conditions for employment. But that completely misses the point. The issue isn't the hiring criteria on paper. It's the culture that has developed where conservative voices are systematically excluded or silenced. When pressed about whether his faculty represents America ideologically, Dr. Lyons deflected by talking about maintaining dialogue across different intellectual positions. But you can't have genuine dialogue when 95% of your faculty comes from the same ideological background. That's not dialogue. That's an echo chamber reinforcing progressive orthodoxy. The connection to campus antisemitism is crystal clear. The progressive left has adopted anti-Israel sentiment as one of their core causes, right alongside climate activism and critical race theory. When university faculties are dominated by this ideological perspective, is it any wonder that Jewish students feel unsafe on campus? The administration either actively supports or passively enables this hostility because it aligns with their political worldview. This isn't about being anti-education or anti-intellectual. This is about recognizing that our universities have abandoned their mission of fostering critical thinking and open inquiry. Instead, they become ideological training camps that produce graduates who can't engage with ideas that challenge their predetermined beliefs. The solution isn't complicated, but requires courage from trustees, donors, and legislators. Universities that receive public funding should be required to demonstrate genuine intellectual diversity in their hiring practices. Students should have protection when expressing viewpoints that don't conform to progressive orthodoxy. And administrators who allow hostile environments for Jewish students or any other group should face real consequences. Parents need to wake up to what's happening at these institutions before they write another tuition check. You're not just paying for an education. You're funding an ideological machine that may actively work to undermine the values you've tried to instill in your children. The testimony we heard represents just the tip of the iceberg. Until we address the root cause of progressive dominance in higher education, we'll continue to see these problems manifest in anti-Semitism, suppression of conservative voices, and graduates who are unprepared for the real world where diverse perspectives actually exist. If you found this analysis valuable, make sure to like this video and subscribe to America First for more content that cuts through the mainstream narrative. Share this with other patriots who need to understand what's really happening in our educational institutions. The future of American education and our constitutional values depends on more people waking up to these realities. Thanks for watching, and remember, America comes first.